With Alphabet's record-breaking rally taking a pause and Nvidia bouncing, the two going head-to-head for AI chip partnerships with Nvidia customer Meta reportedly looking to strike a deal with Google. Joining me with his take on the entire AI space, CQG Partners Portfolio Manager Brian Kersmanc. And Brian, it's great to have you to check in on this take of yours where, I think you guys have believed that the market was overexcited about the AI opportunity for a while. Now the market's been rethinking certain aspects of it, maybe penalizing the open AI area of this growing market. Are we being rational about this at this point, or is there more to go?
I think it's an interesting dynamic that you're seeing right now. And with, the Gemini 3 launch that happened recently and folks getting really excited about that, I think it just shows that the barriers to entry within large language models are a lot lower than people really originally anticipated. The fact that, Google, which was kind of seen as being the, if you will, the buggy whip supplier a couple of months ago, people saw them as lagging extremely far behind. All of a sudden, taking the lead and becoming sort of the leader in this process. That's kind of what we argued in our recent white paper, talking about, the barriers to entry to these large language models are actually pretty modest. Even if you look at the Chinese models that have come about as well. The fact that you've had a lot of these open source models coming out of China that are competing head to head even with Gemini 3 and OpenAI's models and things like that. I think that you're seeing that there's a lot more competition in this space. And what's even more interesting about the Chinese models is that they're doing it with a lot less compute power. So they don't have the access to the GPUs or even the TPUs that we're talking about from Google's side of things. So I think that is very interesting, and I think people are underestimating that, to be completely honest.
So if it's going to be that much more competitive, and yet these companies still feel compelled to invest at a massive rate, I guess there's one line of thinking that says for a while that means demand should hold up for the Nvidias, for the infrastructure hardware companies. I'm guessing you don't think that's necessarily the case.
Yeah, so I think over maybe the near term, you have some of that demand that continues to roll through, but we have seen within the third-party distribution channels that there is a little bit of softness that's happening within the pricing of some of these GPUs, and I think that's going to continue to carry through. And eventually the channel does get a little bit sort of oversaturated, if you will. There seems to be some volume there, and if that continues, then you're going to see that weakness trickle back over to the likes of Nvidia. So again, spending lasts in the near term, and maybe the next quarter or two you can continue to see that. But on a longer term basis, there are questions of headroom on where this spending continues on a longer term basis. And if you see cracks, for example, in the OpenAI thesis, and you see this competition starting to build and come through, well, what does that do for this greater flywheel effect that we're seeing within the AI ecosystem, where NVIDIA is really sort of a linchpin of that, OpenAI is a linchpin of that, and is driving a lot of this AI investment? That grinds the whole thing down and slows that whole flywheel down to a large extent, limits the funding, and then that limits what then goes back into even the hyperscalers. So most of the incremental demand that has come through to the hyperscalers in terms of these cloud platforms is actually that incremental AI venture capital driven type of demand. And that really curtails back how much growth is left there. So really it's a question of headroom and the durability of that growth even beyond this year and next year and things along those lines. That's the concern that we have, that there's a massive over extrapolation of that.